Just so you know.
Awkward.
All right, and welcome to Barely Interesting episode 9, where we have all the ladies. Well, I don't know about all the ladies, but we have ladies from Wrongful. Do we have all the ladies here with us today? Is there 3 of you, or is there more?
No,
We're missing Ashley.
here.
You're missing. Oh, we are. Okay. Very good. Well, we have 3 of the 4 anyways, but welcome, ladies. Welcome. We are here to talk about day 10 of the Zachariah Anderson trial, where we start off with cross-examination of Sadie, and it gets a little saucy. Then we go into all kinds of Walmart, where then we roll into Rebecca Jackal. I don't know. Jackal. I'll go with Jackal. And then we have some cell phone data, which ends with a potential Brady violation. So that is what we have to talk to you guys about today. And the Wrongful ladies are here. Jung wants to say hi to you all.
Hi, Hello.
And but welcome. So Sadie is on the stand for her second day. Remember, yesterday it was the entire day she was on the stand. Today we only get a few hours with her. She gets a bit snarky with the cross-examination. And I had asked yesterday for people to comment whether or not they thought it was. See, I didn't find it believable, and I thought it was snarky. But there could be a perspective that, you know, this is an abused woman, and her responses are appropriate. And I wanted to hear from those people. I haven't yet. But if you're listening now, please let me know what your thoughts are on Sadie's testimony today as well. So go ahead, Solomon. Oh, you're muted.
I think that we really. I'm muted. No, I'm not muted.
No, you're good. You're just delayed.
Can you hear me now? I'm having some connectivity issues.
Yeah, you're just really delayed. Nothing is picking up, and it's a good time.
I was just having some.
You're trying to upload some videos, aren't you? All right, we'll move on. Wrongful ladies.
I'm not. I just what I did was I stopped Jen's live streaming upstairs too. So whatever. Either way, can you hear me now?
Jen.
It's just the bandwidth, I guess, is getting soaked up. So we did release that piece of the discovery, the phone call last night, and we didn't get a lot of time to really talk about it. So I just wanted to ask what your takeaways were from that phone call, that recording from the discovery.
Well, I think she was so mad, extremely mad, yelling, cussing every other word. And Zach just seemed cool and calm, trying to calm her down, trying to reason with her. And she just wasn't, it was just venom coming through the phone. She wasn't having it.
I think there was just a lot of clear, her trying to manipulate him. She wanted both. She wanted him and she wanted Rosario. She wanted to be able to go out and do her own thing, but also she wanted Zach to still want her. That was so obvious. Could hear in her voice she was hurting, but mostly she was just pissed. She was mad at him for not wanting her anymore. That was so obvious.
I apologize. I linked the wrong stream in Solomon Says chat. So if someone could pin the new link, I just put in there. I apologize. I did yesterday, or tomorrow's rather. So that's why everyone's telling me my stream's not live, because that's tomorrow's. But yeah, no. So it sounds very angry, right? In her phone call, and never heard her on the phone before talking to Zach, right? The judge, however, in today's testimony, I feel like he felt this. He had a premonition about this, and that is today's episode of The More You Know.
So then you'd agree that you meant to say, you are stupid for trying to fuck with me, so you get fucked with back.
Yep, banter.
Well, you meant it to be banter, you're saying, but you don't know how Mr. Anderson took that, correct?
I know that I took his actions very personally too, so I felt very quote unquote fuck with, if you will.
Ma'am, please just answer the question which is asked.
I did. Thank you.
You heard what I said?
Yes, I did. Answer the question.
Judge, with all due
Just
respect,
finish your sentence.
Judge, with all due respect, I'm going to just indicate I think that was the full answer to why she went through the phone.
Some witnesses, for example, are evasive and they form their answers in such a way to try to avoid answering the question. And some try to take command of the situation and expand beyond the actual question which is asked. And I don't want to give the impression that he's doing something wrong. It's just the way people talk. I don't know. Do you have people that you would rather they just not stay on the phone with you as long as they do? And that's the basic concept.
The judge is like, those people that you just wouldn't stay on the phone with you as long as they do. That's kind of what I'm hinting at here. It was just so perfect after hearing the conversation yesterday. So I just thought that was funny, and we had to clip that part.
I think that also gives a little bit of credence to the other part of that cross-examination, which was her attitude on the stand. The attitude she just gave the judge, the attitude that she was giving Nicole. You didn't see that venom in exchange with the prosecutor. And it was clear. And I honestly don't understand how the jury found her credible. And I would love to know how.
Well, and that's why I asked for people. Honestly, I want comments from people who found her credible and why you found her credible, because I honestly didn't. And we got a new convert with Polly 2178. Welcome. But yeah, so I don't know if you want to talk about anything else, ladies, about Sadie. I know there were some issues with the phones, right? And the one thing we were talking about backstage, if Josie or Kayla, if one of you want to talk about it, the issue with the cell phone, which cell phone she had when.
No, that's Alicia's.
Elijah.
Yeah, Alicia,
Yeah.
go for it.
Go,
Elijah, you go for it, Elijah.
Yeah. So on May 7th, we hear about an issue where OA drops a phone. It's supposedly Zach's phone. That's where Sadie goes and finds the Amazon purchase for the trackers. And then the next day, May 8th, is somehow a phone ends up in Sadie's car. Is it the same phone? Is it a different phone? It's not specified. They're very vague when referring to that phone. They're very specific when referring to the flip phone. But she also lies about it. She says she found it at her brother's house, and then she went to Kenosha because she couldn't turn it off. But then when she testifies, she says that she found it while she was already in Kenosha. So is that her covering her tracks? Because it seems to me that she purposely went to Kenosha with it. She wanted to create an illusion. Which is funny because she just saw the stalkers the day before.
Yeah, and also I've watched Sadie's testimony so many times, and I'm still not clear, based off of all the testimony from this trial, who had which phone and when. And that should be clear, right? Especially after you watch it umpteen times. That should be clear, and it's not clear to me still today. And that's part of why I feel like this is a wrongful conviction. If the facts aren't clear, how can we convict?
Well,
Because the whole idea behind this is that he knows where he lives because he was there, because his phone is there. Well, what phone, when, and where? That's not clear based off the testimony.
That was part of it, I think, is that we have a cell phone that OA has. We have a cell phone that Zach uses. That's a smartphone. We have Zach's flip phone. So we have at least 3 phones, if not a 4th phone that's discussed, because we still have no idea what phone Sadie was talking about when she had texted Rebecca. And so we have a potential fourth phone in the mix, and nothing is clear about what phone is where at what time, even after today's testimony. What other takeaways did any of you have from Sadie's testimony?
She just was evasive and lying. I mean, there's no other way to put it. She just beat around the bush as much as she could. She tried to play dumb a lot of the times and wouldn't answer questions or answered them to help her or how she was feeling at the time. Like in that thing when they asked about Zach, she talks about Zach. They ask her a specific question about how Zach might have felt, and she turns it into, oh, well, I felt this way, instead of answering what Nicole said.
Yeah, and what do you mean what Nicole asked? You mean she's like,
yeah,
I felt like he was fucking with me.
Right.
Yeah, it's just snarky, and that's where the judge. And so I clipped that together, but they're about 2 minutes apart because they're on to another line of questioning. But he's like, yeah, there's witnesses that are evasive. There's witnesses that tend to over-explain and take control of the answer, right? Take control of the situation. And I think he's suggesting that she's doing both. He's like, but I'm not saying in front of the jury that she's doing anything wrong here. She's just like that type of person that you want to get off the phone call with.
Well, and then Gravely comes in to the rescue also, like trying to back her up and defend her and make it seem less like she's being evasive and snarky and all that. So
yeah.
But I also think it's kind of crazy because the judge says the way she's speaking isn't necessarily wrong, but and he means that in a context of a regular conversation. But if Sadie was talking to you like that in a regular conversation, that would be wrong. You would be like, whoa, lady, like, what's your problem? Why are you speaking to me like that?
Yeah, what I think he's getting at is that it's not legally wrong. It's not like anything that she's not in contempt of court or she's not being illegally answering questions, in violation of the court rules. It's a
but
snarky,
I mean, anybody who watching that, like the first time I watched it, I was like, what's her problem? Like, I understand that it's a normal discourse when you're on cross to be evasive and a little snarky to the defense's lawyer and stuff like that, but she was just over the top to me. Like I was watching it in like disgust. I was like, why is she acting like this? It's so over the top, it's so rude, it's so snarky, it's beyond snarky. I was just disgusted, and just her acting like that alone, I was like, forget this lady. I don't trust her. I don't believe anything she says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mask slipped. Like you can start to see the mask slip when she got asked questions that she didn't know the answer to, or the answer could make her look bad. She got combative.
Yeah, very defensive.
And, again, dealing with family law, that is very common. But you could see it right away. Like this was a woman scorned. She was going to exact revenge. I didn't need to hear the phone call last night to know exactly how she sounded on the phone. And that's exactly how, I assumed she sounded. But that comes across on the witness stand. And that's not good. And I wish someone from the jury would comment on what I have to imagine it was the DNA. They were like, there's no reason for his DNA to be there. We heard DNA was there. He's guilty. Because
no, they heard blood was there.
Well, okay.
Which makes it worse that it's blood.
I know, his blood. But you have to overlook all these other things in order to get to that point. So
I think it was like death by a million cuts or whatever. It was a little bit of OA. It was a little bit of, like we talked about the cell phones. It was purposely confusing. The entire timeline, which they didn't really lay out a proper timeline. I think all of it was so confusing, all jumbled together. And then you had a couple of big things like the DNA, Sadie and the daughter's testimony were probably the big things, but just everything else was just confusion in the jurors' mind. And they were like, yeah, guilty. I don't know. Like, it sounds bad. So guilty.
Yeah.
So I think that leads us to our next 4 witnesses.
We're going to lump them all together. Yeah, because I don't even know. Okay. So we have Mark Howard, Detective something, Peter, Walmart guy, and another Walmart guy. We're lumping them together because the characters don't matter. The story matters.
It's Marty Howard, Martin Howard, Paul Webb, Philip Breachcraft, and Peter Wertschnig. So the Walmart guys. Two of them are
Walmart
detectives.
guys.
Two of them are managers. And it's a chain of
we're just
custody
lumping them
discussion.
together because essentially all we're getting is Walmart video and Walmart receipts. Solomon, remind me again, or maybe Josie or someone else, remind me again, what did he purchase? What did Zach purchase that day?
I got it written down.
She's got the list. I know she does.
Q-tips, Old Spice, shaver, 2 boxes of kitchen-sized trash bags, 3 cans of sardines, disposable gloves, and Clorox wipes.
2 containers of Clorox wipes.
Yeah.
And 2 containers of disposable gloves, which they
Not
made.
Did we find these sardine cans open in the car?
No.
They were not open.
Nope.
And I know I always buy Q-tips when I'm doing my murder kit.
Well,
so.
get the hard to clean spots. You
Yeah.
know, if he had one more case of Q-tips, he would have gotten that final spot, right?
1 Q-tip short.
It's just, and he's wandering around. Okay, so first of all, let's give some context, right? So the video is supposed to show, and the DA says in opening statements that he parks way in the back, away from everyone else, to hide the fact that he has a body in the car. That's what was said. When you watch the video, he's parking towards the back, sure, but he's parking amongst a bunch of other cars, right next to another car. People are walking by. It's not like he's trying to hide his vehicle or, make it parks in a way where no one's going to be around his vehicle. So that's the first problem. Then he's buying all this incriminating stuff like bleach and garbage bags because, those 2 things can only be used for disposing of a body, especially during the vid, right?
Yeah.
So, but he's casually wandering around the store for like an hour. I don't know. It felt like forever when I was watching those videos. Half hour. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
ladies, what are your
legitimately a
thoughts?
half hour.
Yeah.
It was just a normal trip. Like, I don't know. He was looking at
wasn't
stuff on the
stressed.
shelves. He was walking
No.
smooth, looking around like he wasn't.
He was
in a
leaving his
hurry.
cart and walking around an aisle and coming back to the cart. Like he was just in his own little world.
But mind you, this is 3 months after the vid lockdown started. Nobody is calling the stores to see when they're open. Nobody is Googling stores to see what their new hours are under any sort of restrictions. Nobody is buying Clorox wipes. Nobody is buying garbage bags. Nobody's doing anything on this vid lockdown that we've got going on, right?
Yeah, it was 2 months. Wisconsin lockdown, it was, I think, the day before St. Patrick's Day. And so it's almost 2 months to the day. It's legitimately almost exactly 2 months after they locked everything down, shut it down for COVID. And so a lot of this is still fresh and there's still a lot of questions out there. Furthermore, I think it's worth pointing out that there are already trash bags in the back of his van. So when they try and make a big deal of trash bags that he purchased, there were already contractor bags in the back of the van. So trying to point out that he bought trash bags it's faulty logic. He already owned them, and tried to make a big deal out of the Clorox wipes, like that's what would potentially be used. Also insane because, as we've already seen, there was an almost full or a full bottle of bleach on his property already. So trying to point this out like it
wasn't even open. I don't remember what witness it was that opened it. It was brand new. It was never opened before.
Well, yeah, and they weren't bleach wipes, and repeatedly they called them bleach wipes, and that was misleading. There's no bleach in them.
But even, have you ever tried to clean a stove or anything with those? They don't. You'd need a whole.
They don't absorb.
They don't absorb.
Yeah, they just push it around, so you just be left with all the schmears. So the whole line of logic that they're trying to present, because this is like this is all very, very weak circumstantial evidence that they're trying to present, and this, in the state's eyes, is part of the panorama of all of these circumstances that clearly mean that he committed this crime. But it's it's undermined by all of this other evidence, but they're choosing to try to ignore it and suppress it, and it doesn't make any sense. So Walmart is the whole presentation is ridiculous, and if anything, it shows that he's, like you said, cool, calm, and collected, and that he's an innocent guy just shopping at Walmart.
Did they find any of those items that had been opened and or used in any way at all? I believe they found a Clorox wipe container or whatever in the fire
In between
pit.
the
Am I not-
seats. Well, there was that.
in between the seats.
Yeah, there was a Clorox wipes container in between the seats of the van. It's actually in the photographs of the front of the van. There's a container sitting up there, and then there was a partially burned bottle of something that was in the fire pit too.
Okay.
So how come they never checked any of the surfaces for the said wipes? Like if they were trying to prove that he cleaned up this murder scene, like why didn't they try to test for the chemicals in the wipes?
Well, luminol, or the agent that they used that's similar to luminol, I can't remember which one they used, bleach would light up. So if they sprayed luminol,
three different substances to test the red smears in the van. By the way, one was luminol, one was phenolphthalein, and then I can't remember the other one, but there's one more.
Well, I know the luminol in the other one, I forget what it's called. Those two would both light up, and in the presence of bleach or blood, and I don't think that there was any lighting up.
No,
of anything.
No,
I mean, there wasn't.
The van was totally dark. The picture is on freezachariahanderson.org. You can find it there of the back of the van. It is pitch black, no reaction whatsoever.
So if they're saying that he's using these wipes to clean up the back of the van, why is not all these smears lighting up? It doesn't make any cognitive sense.
And how did he leave dust and debris and rocks all over the back? And
Josie,
and
you
going
clean
blood?
around the dust. Come on. Yeah,
Vacuum it up and then dump it back out.
Or did he
What
clean it
do
and
you
then
think the
sprinkle it
Q-tips were
again?
for? He had to go through with the Q-tips around every little piece of dirt. All right, so that is a nothing burger again for the state, and then that
I hate it. It's
leaves us
Blue
with-
Star. Crime Spice got it. It's Blue Star. That's what it's called.
We have then our next witness, which was Rebecca Jekyll. And I think the thing that struck me was the amount of hearsay, how evasive she was, and then just the things that they let her testify to that she couldn't have known. I mean, it was impossible for her to have personally witnessed a lot of the things that she testified to, and that blew my mind.
Yeah, so they got in a lot of testimony for hearsay testimony based on, and when I mean hearsay testimony, I mean testimony that's things that Sadie apparently had said to this woman, as well as, well, no, they tried to get in statements said by her son, but that was objected and sustained. But they were able to get in statements made by Sadie to her because they were using it as not to assert the truth of the matter, but to establish a foundation or an effect on the listener, this person being the listener. You know, essentially, why didn't you call 911? Well, because Sadie said she was, right? That kind of thing. So, but they get a lot of those statements in that way. It's a lot of hearsay that comes in from this particular witness, but it's all for other reasons, right? That's how it's presented. He added the dust back in, Julie says. But yeah, so there's a lot of testimony that's hearsay. It is hearsay, but it's still being admitted through this woman. And there's a lot of other things like that are not relevant. Like there's a lot of relevancy objections. We're going to hear one, actually. You want to play this clip? Do you want me to play it now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is being brought up for a couple of reasons, but we'll play it.
And what was that? I had fallen asleep in the living room on the couch, and when I had woke up, the lights were off. I think the TV was in sleep mode, and I saw a dark figure at the end of the couch. And then when I don't know if I moved or made a sound or whatnot, but where my feet were, there was.
Judge, I'm going to object on the grounds of relevance and other acts. And if this needs to be argued further, I'd like it to be outside the presence of the jury.
That look. she glances. She's she has the look on her face, and she actually looks at Sadie.
The cheese eating.
In the courtroom.
Yeah, we're talking about her smile when she looks over at Sadie. Now,
yeah, it was still going at like 1.75, so it like sped through it a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I slowed it down. I put it at normal speed and I backed it up. We're gonna play it again. I'm not a fan of body language experts because this could be one of two things, in my opinion. This could be nerves, or it could be the smirk given to Sadie, presupposed as, yeah, we got him sort of thing. But let's take a look at it again.
Judge, I'm going to object on the grounds of relevance and other acts. And if this needs to be argued further, I'd like it to be outside the presence of the jury.
But she did. She looked at Sadie right there. Looked at Sadie, smiled, and then realized that she did it, and then tried to calm her face and look away. It's right there. It's on.
I will say too that the camera cuts to Sadie a lot during her testimony. During Rebecca Jackal's testimony, and Sadie is nodding, and apparently Zach is shaking his head, and the judge actually stops everything, tells the jury to get out, and then says, I'm seeing a lot of head nodding from the audience. I'm seeing the defense over there shaking his head no. We're going to stop all that. And then brings the jury back in right away. And he does that sua sponte. Nobody brought an argument for that or anything. So there's a lot of verbal communicate or nonverbal communication, I should say, going on to the point where the judge noticed it and stopped everything. So I will give you that there's definitely some glances going on and some knowing looks because the judge even saw it.
The one time he was paying attention.
Yeah, I was going to say he was paying attention that day.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
Not a clue.
Sort of.
Yeah. He wasn't looking at his phone watching Recovery Addict.
Yeah, or taking a nap, which
We're
I'm pretty sure I watched him do. So there was one day where I was in court and it was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and he was sitting there like this, and I'm like, "How can you judge with your eyes closed, sir?" But
his eyes weren't closed. His eyes weren't closed. He was looking down at his phone. Let's give him some credit.
I'm sure that's what it was. Yep.
Candy Crush.
Okay, but ladies, what did you think of Rebecca's testimony? Did you find her credible compared to other witnesses, or did you just find her stories credible? Her testimony, I should say.
No. I didn't. I think especially what hit me is when they were going through the text between her and Sadie, and she sends Sadie a text saying, "You won't know when, where, or how. I'll call you in 1 week." And when they question her about it, her answer doesn't make any sense. She says that it was her saying that to Sadie, which doesn't make sense because they talk every day. Why would she say, "Call you in a week"? It was definitely her relaying some kind of message from someone else. And it seems like she was being very cryptic about that. And she even admits that she was being cryptic, but she was being selectively cryptic.
She was being selectively cryptic. And then when pressed on the issue, she said, I didn't want Sadie to know what I meant.
Then why text her?
Yeah, but then she would talk about Zach the next day, calling him a psychopath. Like she was afraid that Zach was going through his phone or her phone. But then the next day she would say something else, and she didn't seem to be afraid then.
Yeah, the excuse was that she gave on the stand was that she thought that Zach was going to intercept the message somehow. So she was being extra cryptic to make sure that she would throw him off, which is just a lie. It's just straight up lie. And then when pressed for more information, she also feigns ignorance. She pretends not to know what it even meant. And that whole exchange was so disingenuous. But I'm sorry.
See, I don't buy the state's argument that this all tends to show some sort of grand conspiracy that Sadie and Rebecca's son unalived Rosalio and to frame it on Zach, which is what the state was arguing was the purpose of the defense's examination of this issue. I don't buy that. What I think was happening, if I'm going to put my speculation cap on, is that they were seriously considering doing something bad to Zach. And what that shows to me is that they weren't scared of him. And they then had the motive to, when I say they, Sadie, and a lot of people think like these conspiracies are like planned out months in advance and everyone knows their roles. It could be a conspiracy of opportunity as well, right? So it just happens to fall in your lap and you take advantage of it. And it could be that this is the motive that led then Sadie to say, oh, well, maybe Zach had something to do with it. Let's run with that. And just took advantage of the situation that presented itself. Rather than going their alternative route or their plan B, as was texted by Sadie to Rosalio. So, but this definitely is establishing the motive. I feel that Sadie and Rebecca and Sadie's little inner circle wants to potentially do something to Zach to prevent him from getting custody, because he just filed at this point. He just filed. Sadie had just filed a counter motion or a counter complaint, and they were going to get in the heat of it. And so it's not that far fetched. I deal with it again all the time. I've had women, mothers on the other side, file police reports and try to get their exes, my clients, charged criminally so that they can go to court and say, look, he's a criminal. He can't have the kids, and we have to then go do the criminal thing first. And then by the time we get all that resolved, then the mom has had the kids for 6 months exclusively. And then dad's got to start building up that relationship again with the kids. It's a disaster. And it happens all the time. Even though the charges are frivolous, I get them dismissed. It's what happens. And so,
well, yeah, you can see that just the text messages before that is Sadie saying, I think he's stalking me. I just can't prove it. And that's what happened right before that text exchange. And suddenly there's something going on with the phone and cryptic messages. So it was more, it speaks to me that they were trying to prove something.
Yeah.
That feels so alien to this case. I could not even connect those two logically.
Yeah, I know. Right? Well, that's why I'm watching this and I'm like, this is a domestic case.
That's
and she's pointing the finger at him so that she could take advantage of it in the domestic, in the family law case, in the child custody dispute. That's exactly what I feel is happening here. And again, it doesn't take months of planning and everyone having their roles in their lines and all that stuff. It could just fall into your lap and you take advantage of it.
But when you couple that with one of the most incompetent police forces in the United States, then we have a situation where they can't understand that the evidence isn't showing a man is guilty of the crime that he's accused of. And instead of just grieving or causing discomfort for said man, they run with it, frame him for a crime, and then she has to low-key let him know that he should have just continued to wait for her, like we saw with multiple references to songs from Sadie, especially.
Oh, yeah, someone's got a song.
Oh, the song.
The song.
So back when Sadie took Zach's phone on a little joyride to Kenosha.
Are you singing it for us? That's what I want.
I will not be singing it.
You could just hum along.
It goes to show her state of mind the day she went to Kenosha with his phone, whether it was she thought he was stalking her. I'll just read a lyric. It said, and I should good fellow you, call me Karen, waking up to my Beretta. If I blow your brains out, I can guarantee that you'll forget her. Kiss me, I'm the monster you made me. And ask yourself.
But that was a song sent to her?
That was a song she sent
to
to Zach. And so ask yourself if that sounds like a woman afraid because she's being stalked, or a woman who has some kind of motives of her own for some kind of revenge.
I always think of Alanis Morissette.
That was such don't think of song. Alanis Morissette. Don't do that.
I almost started singing it.
It's not ironic. That? I don't care.
Who's the artist? What's the name of the song? Because I got to look it up now, even though we can't play it here.
Jessie Reyes. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Jessie Reyes.
Yeah, I think it's Reyes.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. So that's
title
yeah.
Same
I mean,
Same Side by Jesse Reyes.
same side.
I think it was Do You Love Her?
Do you love her? Yeah.
I think she sent them both.
Okay.
Oh,
So multiple songs.
Okay.
She wanted to send a message.
You can play
You
like
don't
8
say.
seconds. I'm not monetized, so I can't.
Neither am I.
Go
All right, that actually leads us into the next piece, which is oh wait, do we want to talk about the Mexico trip and maybe any of your thoughts about a mother leaving her children with a friend and never telling the father?
It happens all the
I
time.
mean, it does happen, but why? I don't know. What if something happened? Like if something happened to you or your kids or any of that, like their dad wouldn't even know. It's wrong.
I think
mean,
it's just
And then
so
and then for
clearly-
her
to
to
be
say it's none of
fair-
his business. Like, I mean,
Okay.
he didn't have to give details or like say a bunch of stuff, but at least let the guy know. Give him the
I don't
opportunity
know.
to have his kids.
I don't know what the parenting time arrangement legally was, right? But what I'm going to say is when it is the mother's parenting time and the mother's not with the child because the mother's going to go do something else, whether it's a trip to Mexico or going to work, it's the mother's responsibility to provide childcare and make sure the child's safe. They don't have to go to the other parent with first right of refusal, at least in Michigan. And in most states, there's no obligation that they go to the other parent. Now, is it a shitty move? Sure, maybe. I don't know. But there's no legal obligation to do it. So I will say that. She can
Well,
leave
see,
them with a daycare provider.
I'm in Arizona and when it's my time with my kids, I can make arrangements however I want to. I don't have to ask their dad, but it is in our order. We have to tell each other that we're going to be out of town and that the kid will be with so and so. And I don't
Maybe
have to
that's
give
something-
them to him though. So
Maybe that's something particular to your order. In Michigan, it's the law that if you take the child out of state, then you have to inform the other parent of where you're
state or out of
taking them.
country. Yeah.
Or out
That
of the
is the
country,
same-
then there's
yeah.
a whole other thing when you take them out of the country. But if you're just leaving out of the state or out of the country and the child's staying in the state, you don't have to say anything as long as you're not neglecting the child, right? You don't want to leave them home alone. But if you're providing daycare, there's nothing unlawful about that. At
think
least in
that-
Michigan. I don't know
The
Wisconsin.
point is not the legality, David, though you're right to point it out. The point is the irresponsible parenting tactic. From a parenting or a healthcare point of view, there's two people that can make healthcare decisions for those children in case of an emergency. Those
Right.
two people, one of them is out of the country doing God knows what, might not be able to get cell phone service, might not be able to answer the phone. So that means that the other parent should be aware of the departure from the country so they can make themselves available to answer the phone in those potentially life-threatening emergencies or other medical situations where a parent needs to make those decisions. That is
Right.
an important and responsible parenting tactic, something that a responsible parent would do when co-parenting, even with someone that you might not like very much.
There's a lot of issues. This is the last thing I'll say. There's a lot of issues when the ex gets remarried, right? And say the step parent is home with the kids, but the mother or the father leaves to go on a vacation or something like that. And then the other parent comes along and is like, "What are you doing with my kids?" Well, no, it's that
Yeah.
parent's parenting time. The kids are going to school. There's somebody responsible here at the home.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. That was kind of the reason why we got rid of the whole first right of refusal idea. But yeah, so it's kind of an asshole move, but it's not illegal to be an asshole, right? So
Right. So that wraps up Becky, unless anyone else had anything else to say about her.
What's
Ladies?
there to say?
comment.
Well,
Okay.
the fact that she wasn't even supposed to testify, and 2 weeks before trial, all of a sudden they needed her.
Well,
And
I think they
that was
needed
to
her
help
because the
Sadie.
defense. Well, the defense, I think, was challenging a lot of those text messages. And there's a lot of hearsay issues too. I was gonna do a stream about hearsay and what it actually is, because they tried to admit text messages with Sadie's own statements, and they couldn't because of hearsay issues. So they have to bring this woman in, but then it's additional hearsay, so then it's effect on the listener, so then you can get it in. That's my short version of it. They needed her essentially.
We have 2 more witnesses to discuss. So we have Agent Judd, the FBI agent. Agent Judd goes through maps of cell phone pings. They explain the difference in the transfer of a phone ping from a primary tower when the phone is requesting service versus the initial ping, and what they actually track. So we have those maps as she moves through tracking Zach's phone. They mentioned that they also did reports on me, Josh, Andrew, and Fred. and Jason. So all of the individuals that they did cell phone printouts for, every single one was surrounding Zach. That means that they didn't look into any other lead at all. Not a single person did they decide to try to chase as a potential lead. They didn't care. They only wanted Zach, and they tried to get anything they could and came up with nothing. But I mean, almost nothing. So that's the bare bones of what she testified.
They came up with not a cell phone,
and when
not a cell phone in Kenosha at the time of the unaliving. That's what they came up with.
Not a cell phone in Kenosha during that time. And matter of factly, his cell phone was at his house. So we have that, and then we have the tracking of the phone on the 18th, where he drives, goes to Walmart, then to the job site, and then goes to pick up his taxes after stopping briefly at home. It's really that simple. He was just doing his regular life, didn't care about anything happening in Kenosha, and it's clear by that evidence, the omission of evidence not speaking towards guilt. But the last guy is Officer Morton, Sean Morton. This guy, and there are some big issues that come up with him. One being that he makes the statement that there was around 10 hours worth of video footage or of recording on Zach's laptop in the custody battle folder. And he said, I don't know, I listened to a couple, but I didn't listen to all of them. It seemed mostly like a man and a woman arguing about child custody.
I noticed that. He said that, and I was like, yeah, it seems like
10 hours or something like that.
This is insanity to me, because it's either him absolutely perjuring on the stand about the contents of that folder, because the recording that we played yesterday was in that file. One of the things that he could have actually listened to that had exculpatory information regarding the stalking charge that they were holding Zach on. So they had exculpatory information in their possession, and they refused to recognize its existence. Secondly, if he didn't listen to all 10 hours, how did they know that there wasn't anything in any of those recordings regarding Rosalio Gutierrez or his disappearance?
Yep.
So
That's why I think he must have.
We have a crooked police officer that's willing to perjure himself for the sake of a conviction, or we have the most incompetent detective that could have possibly owned the badge. Either way, the man should be fired and held responsible. Sorry. And the Brady violence.
Saucy Saul.
Solomon, what are your thoughts?
How do you really feel?
Yeah.
We got a nice Solomon rant. That was great. And that's the show,
Could
guys.
it be a little bit of both? That he was incompetent? Well, maybe not. I don't know.
It could be.
I feel like they were after anything that they could have pinned, like any statement of Zach threatening someone. They would have searched that for that, because they were trying to throw everything at the wall.
It's like they dug, and as soon as they found something that looked bad for Zach, that's where they stopped and then moved on to the next thing that they think they could spin to make him look bad. And anything that has anything that has something that would make him like exculpatory, they completely ignored that. I mean, they had to find things. They did find things that were exculpatory, but they just ignored that completely.
Yep, and that's what they do. That's what they do, and that's the hardest thing. What I say, you don't want to talk to police, because exculpatory statements that you give to the police, they don't have to use, and you can't use them because of hearsay rules and things like that. And evidence that's presented to the police, if they're exculpatory, they have to hand it over, but then you have to try to convince the jury that this is exculpatory and they shouldn't even have brought these charges. So if you can't convince the judge to dismiss right away, so it's hard to do. And I feel like there could be a better system, but I don't know what it would be other than more educated juries. I keep coming down to that, more educated juries.
I mean, we could talk about that, and I think in our wrap up of this whole situation, I think that begs for a whole episode, actually, with some of the other decisions that have been made in the last couple of months. But realistically, we also have some discrepancy in police reports where Morton claims that Rosalio's laptop is password protected, but then Van Wee, when processing the crime scene, says that it's not. So, and we have a picture of the laptop open with Windows up, with no necessary code to get into it. So we have these discrepancies. We have this problem with this police officer, and we have a history of corruption in Kenosha. So we don't know how much of this evidence is reliable. And that's part of the issue, is that this guy, the guy that either perjured himself or proved himself to be the most incompetent detective, that guy was the one that processed Zach's laptop. And strangely, when photos that didn't seem to be even on Rosalio's Facebook magically showed up on Zach's laptop, now we're questioning whether it's even true. Who did put them
But
in
why
there,
why did
that's
the
possible.
defense just say okay and like, oh, we worked it all out? Like,
I have no
instead of
idea.
like
Yeah.
hounding on it, they could have gotten, some of it. I don't know. I just don't
wish
like
I
that they didn't hound it. They didn't pursue it. They just
'Cause how do you
stipulated,
prove
said
that he did
okay,
it?
and and that was it.
Because that's the
Don, I
problem. How do you
answered your
prove that he did it?
question in my chat. I'm sorry. I was messaging Don, and I answered in my chat. Jump over there.
Anyway, so that actually is about the end here. We got to start wrapping up. So tomorrow is day 11 of the trial. Day 11 is kind of a big deal. It is the most chaotic day. That's the day where OA testifies. And so we actually pre-recorded our episode of Barely Interesting, and that's going live at 9 p.m. at our regular time, because our special guest, Lou Hillier Psych, she joined us to talk about the psychological implications and some of the issues surrounding the manipulation of a child and why a child might be in that sort of mental state while testifying. So tomorrow, don't miss the episode. I'll try and be in chat with you, making sure that we're talking. David, you might not.
I will be nowhere to be found.
He will be hanging out, spending quality time with family. But I'll try and engage some of the chat, and we'll go from there. But thank you for coming. Thank you for being here tonight, ladies of Wrongful. Go, if you have not familiarized yourself with this case through and through, go to wrongfulpod.com. It's right below me. This place right here. You can find the entire series streaming there. Listen to it. It's very.
It's also
good.
linked in our description below as well. So check it out there. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us. You have so much to say about this case, I know, and this 45 minutes is killing you guys. We actually win an extra 10 or an extra 5. An extra 5 minutes. So you got an extra 5 minutes out of us.
Nice.
But thanks for joining us tomorrow at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. And then again, we don't stream on the weekends. We'll be back on Monday. We have 3 more days of trial after Friday. So don't miss it. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.